Okay, so as we said, we're going to begin with a review of last time. So we have, hold on, my camera's a little crooked. Okay. Peak seal mechitalo usfasav moke shenafsho. The mouth of a fool is brings destruction to himself, and his lips are a snare for his soul. Anyone want to take a stab at summarizing what we ended up with to the best of your ability?
That the seal will put himself in when he talks, he'll cause harm to himself,
Right.
and he can't stop himself from doing so, and so he'll be like it'll, and then also when he talks, he'll be forced to double down on what he says because he's not willing to admit that he was wrong.
Okay, good. Right, that's a good summary. Right, so this, and then what did we say? What's the cause of this? Like, why is it that the fool does this? And we said it's not just, in other words, certainly he speaks without thinking, but then what is the quality that makes it into a snare or that makes him double down on it? Like, why can't he just, say the wrong thing and then like backtrack?
Because he's not willing to admit that he was wrong.
Right. Okay. Good. All right. So I'll show you my 4-sentence summary here, which so I called it the self-inflicted harm of a fool's mouth. Whereas a chacham uses speech to express, develop, and convey his thoughts to others in order to arrive at a mutual understanding, the ksil's speech is driven by his ego, his insecurities, and his drive for domination, as described in Mishlei 18.2 and 18.6. Not only will his consistently combative communication guarantee his destruction at the hands of others, whose hostility he has kindled and stoked, but he will bring ruin to his own mind by allowing his views to be dictated by his personality-driven speaking habits. His own words will act as a snare for his soul because once he says something, no matter how unthinkingly or impulsively, he'll be too insecure to back down. Moreover, he is afraid of his own mouth since he can't control his speech and knows how easily he could say something which ends up harming him. And that is from Rabbeinu Yonah's translation as mechita lo, meaning intimidates him, in addition to destroying him. All right. So any questions on this pasuk? All right. So today's pasuk
I had a different understanding, like a different thought of what usfas of moki shenafsho could mean.
Yeah.
Although I think it doesn't work out as well. It's that he, I was also taking the lips to mean like like shallow surface things, but
Right.
I was, I thought maybe an alternative reading was that he, is that he makes obligations without thinking, without
that's interesting.
So he traps himself into doing things that he doesn't want to do.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I definitely think that would be true of a person who speaks impulsively in general. I think that the only problem I have with that is that it seems to be too narrow for the scope of the pasuk. Like, I don't see anything in the pasuk that I know you're getting it from the word snare, but like I guess given how broadly the first half of the pasuk seems, then I'm not inclined to treat the second half as being about that specific category of speech. And then the second thing is, I think if we didn't have the information from the previous pasuk about the ksil, then I'd be more inclined to that way. But the fact that it's already, sifsek ksil yavou beriv, this would seem to be a direct extension of that.
Yeah, I think it doesn't work out. Also because it doesn't fit with the first half of the pasuk so well.
Right.
But I was just thinking about it because when you were talking about the definitions of nefesh,
right,
it could mean body, and then
right,
like in that
snares himself, right? Yeah, it's a good interpretation in isolation, I think, of the second half. Yeah, I just don't think it works out with the first and certainly with the previous one.
Yeah, I don't think it works out either.
Yeah, no, but I'm glad you said it though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now we have a bit of a doozy of a puzzle here. Okay, and this one might take us more than one day. Okay, and stop me. Okay, I was trying to remember. I know I did this puzzle recently with someone, and I'm pretty sure it was neither of you. Okay, but if it was, then stop me. Okay, so here we go. Oops, sorry, stop. I always forget I have to share my full screen because we got to switch back and forth between Word and Chrome. Okay, Divrei Nirgan Kamislahamim Vehim Yardu Chadre Button. Does that sound familiar to either of you? Immediately familiar in terms of from us doing it? No? Okay.
Oh yeah,
I
of
don't know.
course.
Okay. All right, good. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you to translate what you can. This
I'm
is one of the...
noticing that we have more translation.
Yes.
on the-
Yeah. I actually did some footwork on this one because I knew this was going to be a doozy. Yeah. So what words do you know?
Haim.
Different.
So we got the words of the, I assume you don't know Nirgan, right? Are Kamislahim. Didn't we have that earlier?
It sounds familiar. I'm trying to remember what context.
Was that in 18.6? Let me look. I believe it was. In 18.6, it was Ufiv Lamahalumos Yakra. Yeah, so it's oh actually no, sorry. Yeah. Same word from Laham. So that we can actually do. So are like shattering blows, okay, like physical blows. Vihim yardu chadre button. How do you
descend.
Yeah.
So chadre, I think either means like rooms or like maybe concealed places.
Yeah, good. So I like Art Scroll, I believe. I haven't checked here lately. I think they translate it as chambers of the button.
I feel like that's something that's like has something to do with a person.
Yes, it's a part of the anatomy.
Yeah, no, I
Button.
think it's a specific organ that's also used colloquially for some aspect of a person's personality, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So the literal translation of beten is belly. Okay. So we'll have to figure out. I think you're right though, that we'll have to figure out colloquially what it is. All right. So I guess really the difficulty in the puzzle is from Nirgan and Mislahamim, and we already kind of tackled Mislahamim in the previous puzzle, so that's why it's not as difficult. Okay. So just to present the full range of views here, or not the full range, but a range. So I tried looking up the Targum. It was one of these things where like I just don't even know if it's worth it. Miloi de shigusha ma'arkan le umachasan le laomek dishiol. All right. So I did a little bit of the legwork and looking up all these words. So miloi is the words. Okay. Shigusha. You know what shigusha is?
Nirgan.
No? So shigusha, I actually wasn't sure because I found two things here. You can see my Jastro online, right? Okay. Shigusha. So I wasn't sure if it was where was it? So shigusha is, wait a minute, let me move you guys so I can see the screen. Yeah. So shagosha is disturber or mischief maker. All right. And oh, interesting. Okay. What do you guys call it when you the pasuk that you're looking up is the example that Jastro cites? There is a right answer and a wrong answer to this.
Jastro jackpot.
Good. And what's the wrong answer?
Jastro bonus.
Yeah, I don't get it. I just don't get it. You have to have like.
I haven't heard either of those.
You haven't. Okay, so then we're getting you in the at the right time in your learning development. Yeah, someone used that in my group.
The correct term is a Jastro jackpot.
Jastro jackpot. Well, why would you? If you like, maybe if you had the term in another language and like you translated it, then that'd be fine. But how can you go with Jastro bonus over Jastro jackpot? It just doesn't make sense.
If you had the term in another language and you translate it and you didn't get a Jastro jackpot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
We also have the nice alliteration and the and like the vowels line up nicely.
Right, and the feeling, like it feels like there's a feeling of hitting the jackpot, which is not getting a bonus. It's
Yeah, a bonus sounds like it sounds like you're getting like a yisron.
exactly. Yeah. Okay. Now you might be wondering why I'm even talking about this, because it says Proverbs 26:20, which is not the pasuk we're doing, but this happens to be a weird feature of our pasuk. If you search for the phrase divrei nirgan, okay, check this out. It appears in two places in Mishlei. Okay, Mishlei 18:8, which is ours, and Mishlei 26:22. Oh, that's also not the one he said. But check it. I mean, I was going to make this point anyway. What is what is strange about this this phenomenon here? Compare and contrast the two psukim.
They're exactly the same.
Exactly the same, right? So there are psukim in Mishlei that are somewhat the same, but this is the only instance I know of where the actually, sorry, I shouldn't say it's the only instance. One of the only instances I know of in Mishlei where the exact same pasuk appears in a different place. Now, it's not entirely. There is I don't know. I don't want to call it an out. I guess there is a difference based on where it appears in the book, which is I mentioned that Mishlei chapters 1 through 24 were written by Shlomo HaMelech, or are ascribed directly to Shlomo. And then 25 until 29 is the Mishlei Shlomo that were transcribed by Anshe Chizkiyahu. So it is two different like sources, okay? But still the question is why you need to duplicate the pasuk. All right, so that's just one question. But now I'm realizing that this was not a Jas or jackpot, because this is 22. Sorry, this is 26:20. So I actually got that wrong. Okay. Anyway, back to the yeah.
No,
Okay.
I said aw.
Oh yeah, so not a jackpot. False one. So Shagosha is disturber or mischief maker, and then Shigushya or Shigush is confusion, perplexity, or excitement. Okay. And the reason why I am in doubt about this is because you'll often find, I don't know which editions of Onkelos you guys use, but I have found that if I compare different versions of Onkelos, sometimes the nukudos are different. So you got to be a little bit fast and loose, unless you know Aramaic grammar. You got to be a little bit willing to be a little bit loose with your vowelization. So I don't know if he means disturber and mischief maker or words of confusion. Okay, so we'll leave that. So let me just type that in here. So the words of let's say confusion or mischief. Okay, Markachan le. Now I could not figure out how to look this up. Markachan. Did I even try? Yeah. So I don't know if it's rachan, which is to soften or to like. Oh look, actually it is. See, this is a Jas or jackpot. Targum to 18:8. That is our pasuk. Okay, good. So I guess that is that then. So they soften him. Okay, soften him. And my intuition here, I don't know if this is just me making stuff up, but when I think of soften, so do you think of a particular English word that is a combination of soften and hitting? And it's a culinary word.
What? Kneading? Is that what you're
close. Kneading, though you're not actually punching. This you're actually like punching or hitting. Tenderize. When you tenderize meat, right? Like you hit it with a mallet, you know. So that's what. I've never done that either, but I've seen it done on Looney Tunes growing up. Yeah, so tenderize I think is a good word because it is softening through hitting. So let's go with that. Umachasan le laomek dishiol. So they sorry, let's say the words of confusion tenderize him. Umachasan. So I also had a hard time looking this one up. Let me close these as I go through them. Machasan is, so I found out which one is it here? I don't think it means to take coals out of a pan. Where did I see it? Oh yeah, chasa is to put down or rest. So I think that might be it, simply because it is the closest thing to yored. Okay, so I'll say they bringing him down, la'omik de Sheol, okay, to the depths of, do you have a guess of what Sheol is?
Like the grave.
Yeah,
or
the
like,
grave. Okay, good. Right. So Sheol, I guess I looked this up just to be sure.
Is that one of the 7 names for Gehenna?
Yeah. So Sheol is the Aramaic version of Sheol, the netherworld or the grave. Okay, so the depths of the grave. Okay, so that's what we get from our Targum. All right. Mitsudas Tzion. Here's what we get from him. So he says, so he gives us an actually a different word for Nirgan, and this is the most common translation of Nirgan, by the way. Mislonain, complainer. Okay, so the words of the complainer are like, and then he says, I think he says for Mislamim, Inyan Haka Hamashaberes, Vuhavach min Halom. Okay, I don't really know what halom is. But he goes with shattering blows. I like shattering blows. And then the rest of the pasuk is like, we did it. Okay. Sa'dya Gaon is completely different. So here's Sa'dya Gaon's translation. Divrei hamashchis kamis lahlea vehim megim el chadre halev. Okay, so then let's look at Kafach's explanation of his translation here. So Nirgan mechare, I don't know what the Sadi with the dot over it is in Arabic. Reila el tezayin chavches umislam mislah lea v'hu hapolit devar kilu kil acher yad v'him dikiros. Someone who literally polit is to spit out his words in a backhanded manner, and they are sharp. Can you think of an English word or English phrase that would describe that type of speech? Spitting out your words in a backhanded way, in a piercing or sharp manner. So I'll tell you what I associate to, and again, I'm getting a lot of this. I'm getting this primarily from I don't know what he means by polate, but kila acharyad and dikiros. So I would say passive aggressive speech, right? That you are trying to pierce somebody, but you're doing it in a backhanded manner. And this is actually one of the forms of, actually, you know what? Let's look at the Rambam here. Do you know? Oh, here's a halakha Rambam Bekios or halakha Bekios quiz. What isser are you violating if you speak this way?
Don't hold in your anger toward your friend.
Okay, so that's actually a good shaila, right? Because you're chayav of holding in your anger if you are silent about it, and if you confront them about it, then you are out of the isser. But the question is, if you confront them in a backhanded way, are you? Is that more? Does that have a din of silence or not?
I guess
so this
probably does not. It's probably
does not. Yeah. And I think the reason why is because if you the other halakha is if you hit them, then you're also out of the isser, even though you don't say anything at all. So I think as long as you're expressing it in some way. So this is a isser avak lashon hara, dust of lashon hara. So let me just show it to you in the Rambam here. I mean, that's my interpretation, at least. You'll tell me. So this is in Hilchos Deos. Sorry, is it? No, it's Zion, I think. Yeah. So avak lashon hara is, here you go. My suspicion was right. Okay. So v'chein hamasaper b'lashon. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Yesh tavarim shehein avak lashon hara. There are things which are the dust of lashon hara. Ketzad. How so? Mi yomar leploni sheyeh kamoshu ata. Who knew that so and so would turn out like this now? Shiyomar shaskumi ploni any rote lahodia ma'ira umahaya. Or like if you say, I can't talk about Pliny, I don't want to say what happened. So that's one category of avak lashon hara, which is you're alluding to something negative. Okay. Second category, if you speak well about your friend, so you say good things about your friend in front of his enemies. This is dust of lashon hara. Shezek gorim lahem shisapru b'gnuso, because it causes them to speak of his degradation. And then he quotes a Mishlei pasuk about Inyan Zeh Amar Shlomo Mavarach re'ehu b'kol gadol b'boker hashkem klala techashiv lo. One who blesses his friend early in the morning in a loud voice, it will be considered a curse for him. Shemi tovaso balide ra'aso, because from his good it'll come to his bad. Side point: this is one of the as a high school teacher, I've noticed that there are certain almost universal misconceptions that I feel like are taught by elementary school teachers. One of them is whenever I'm talking about lashon hara, the halachos of lashon hara with students, there inevitably a student who raises their hand and says, I heard it's usher to say good things about people because that might make people say bad things. And they just say it like as if it's a category that you're not allowed to say anything good about someone. And I have to clarify, no, it's saying good things about someone in front of their enemies, because there it's going to cause them to say something bad. But speaking good about a person is not usher. Okay,
Also,
then we get to our
also the light phase in the morning. I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, so that we'd have to learn that Mishlei pasuk to see why he gives that particular case of in the morning. Ramam though definitely seems to be implying that it's a case of this saber mitovas chavero bifnei sonav. So we'll have to see that in Mishlei. Okay, now here's our category, and you'll check out what word it uses. Okay, so if you speak lashon hara in a joking or frivolous manner, kolomar she'ino medaber b'sina, as if you're not speaking out of hatred. Hu sheshlomo omer, this is like what Shlomo says, kamis lahalea hayore zikim chitim umavis. Let's actually look this up in context because he doesn't quote the full pasuk. Kamis lahalea hayore zikim chitim of maves. So like one who is mislah leah is one who shoots I forgot what zikim are. I mean, I think like lightning, but I don't think it's like Palpatine lightning, but it's one who shoots I don't know what zikim are, some sort of weapons and arrows and death. Okay. Kain ish rima esreyehu amar halomasachekani is like someone who deceives his friend and says, I was just joking. Okay, so like what we would say is if you are is like if you fired a gun at somebody like and missed them and said, oh, I was just joking, so that's this category. So the Rambam interprets it as I don't think he means any joke is usher, obviously, but he means if you joke as if you're not doing it out of hatred, but you actually are doing it out of hatred, or you're actually doing it in a hurtful way, like when you cross the line with humor in this way. And then you just say like, oh, like lighten up, like I was just joking. V'chein hamasaper b'lashon hara derech ramayus v'hu sheyisaper l'tumo ki'ilu eino yodei shedavar zeh lashon harahu. You speak in a two-faced manner, duplicitous way, which is as if you're speaking innocently. Ki'ilu eino yodei shedavar zeh lashon harahu, as if you don't know it's lashon hara. Ela k'shemamachim bo, when they rebuke you, Omer, then you say, you say, oh, I didn't know that so-and-so did this, or I didn't know that this is lashon hara. So these are all avak lashon hara, which are indirect ways of doing lashon hara. And so I think the way Sadigon says it, I mean, Shlomo uses the word mislah aleah, but from Sadigon's description of backhanded piercing statements, it sounds like it's like a combination of both of these, or of something like that. I mean, certainly it's the first one, but like that you're doing it in a backhanded way, but it's actually hurtful, or you're doing it as if you think you're innocent of lashon hara. So that's the lengthy explanation of what Sadigon is. So essentially, what he's doing is he's taking the word nirgan and he's saying it's referring to this category of mislah halea, of like passive aggressive speech or hurtful speech. Okay, then he says ubeten halev. So he translates betem as the heart. Okay, and let's see if this is relevant here. V'chein tirgum b'iyov, blah blah blah. Re'esham hudrasi. Okay, v'gdamos alem videos perak zayin kasv shezeh ar la'adam she'im yishma divrei pikpuk o kfira me'echan me'kofrim yitin el sadavar el libo v'yeda l'dachosam. She'im lokein asuyim. I think that's a ches. Lachador l'toda'aso l'ses ha. Karaso ulahavich oso. Don't know what that means. So I think he means lave his mind. Okay, so let me translate. So the words of the passive aggressive, words of passive aggressiveness are like piercing wait, how do you translate it here? Hold on. Are like Divri Ham, oh sorry, Divri Hamashkis Kamis Lahalea. I translated that wrong. The words of the destroyer. Okay, so it sounds like he's continuing on from the previous pasuk of Mechita, right? The same word here. The words of the destroyer are passive aggressive, descending to, oh sorry, they reach. Did he have another word there? The blanks of the mind? Yeah, Chadre Halev. The chambers of the mind. Yeah. Okay. Almost done with the translation phase here. That's what I meant when I said there's some legwork here. Okay, Art Scroll is, hold on. Art Scroll says, the words of a complainer are like blows, and they descend to the chambers of one's innards. So they probably say innards instead of belly because it lends itself more to, like Isaac was saying, of like an analogy or an idiom, as opposed to like belly is like a much more physical description. Okay, living nach. Oh, side point, by the way, Isaac, your brother David asked me what I think the best translation of Tanakh is into English. And I told him, I might have said this before here, but I'll say it anyway, just for full disclosure. I said, I tend to like the Art Scroll, but I know I'm biased because I basically learned how to translate Tanakh from Art Scroll. So it's like this positive feedback loop where when I am translating on my own, and then I come up with something, I look it up in the Art Scroll, and I'm like, oh, they translate just like me. But usually it's like the other way around. That I've internalized all of Art Scroll's translations, so I don't know if they're actually better than others. But
doesn't Art Scroll take like Rashi's parish and like incorporate it into the words?
Yeah, but I don't think that's a valid critique of Art Scroll, because I think everyone does that. Everyone takes a translation. What translation is interpretation. The only difference is Art Scroll does it consistently is they default to Rashi or they default to Mitsudos. And I think that's even better, because then you as an English reader, you can know that if there's any ambiguity, you know that Art Scroll is erring on the side of Rashi or Mitsudos. Whereas if it's a regular translator, they could be going according to anyone, so at least you get consistency there.
Okay, yeah, that's. I guess like if you're thinking about that when you're reading it, like if you have that in mind, that's a phenomenon, then I think that makes sense to me.
Right. Yeah. And I think the charge, when you hear people make that complaint about Art Scroll, they make it sound like when they say, oh, they translate according to Rashi, it's like their underlying accusation is it's not a pure translation, and I think that's just a fallacy in looking at translators, is that there's no purity of translation. I think there are translators who will opt to preserve the ambiguity, and you can argue that that's a more useful learning tool. And then there are translators who will default to something that's intelligible. But I don't think there's such a thing as a pure translation. Okay, so Living Nach says, "Ooh, look at this. The words of an inciter are like crushing blows, which penetrate to the depths of one's insides." So I said ooh because inciter sounds like the Targum. Wasn't one of the Targum things excitement? Yeah, I closed the window already. I'm not gonna look it up again. I think he said excitement, but yeah, anyway, well, at least we have one of them. And then altar says the words of a grumbler are like pounding. There you go. Pounding is like tenderizing there. And they go down to the belly's chambers. Okay, done with the translations. With getting all the translations out. So yeah. Okay, let me just economize this here. So we can delete this. I think what we can do is like this. I'm going to go with complainer because that is the most what do you call it? I think that's the mainstream interpretation, and it's very close to like, you know, grumbler and all these other things here. So let me just make this a little bit smaller, and then let's come up with the questions. And I think we'll have to stop after we come up with the questions because I have to go at 9:15. All right. So what are the questions going to be here? First question is the obvious one, which is what is a nirgan? No matter how we define it. What else?
How are they shattering blows?
Yeah. How are his words like shattering blows?
What does descending to the chambers of the belly mean?
Yes. What does
What is the descent, and what are the chambers?
yeah, mushal
Whose
of
belly?
chambers of the belly. Belly, right. Yeah, descending and chambers, right.
Zev said whose belly, which I think is a good question.
Okay, good. Whose belly? Yeah. Right. And actually, you know what? Let's broaden the question. Okay. To whom are the words of a complainer, etc.? Okay. Because what would you say the possibilities are?
The complainer or the people around him, I guess.
Or the one who's being complained about.
Yeah. Or the victim. Yeah. Yeah, I think those are the three possibilities. Good.
Who's the
I'm going to ask a question here, which hopefully is comprehensible. What is the relationship between the two halves? And what I mean by that is, are these two separate effects, or is it that they are like blows, and then that effect also descends to the depths of the chambers of the belly? I'll clarify that here. Are these two separate consequences, or effects, or does the second follow from the first? That makes sense? We'll ask our standard questions here. Okay, who is the intended audience of this pasuk? And here, I think our question number 4 kind of like sets us up for different possibilities there. I don't think the audience is the victim, but it's definitely either for the complainer or for the people around him. Because there's nothing you can do if someone is complaining about you.
Well, if you know someone's a complainer, maybe you could try to avoid inciting them.
Right. So that I think would fall under the category of the people around him. And it would just be a more extreme case of it because it's talking about, because if you're the victim of it, then that's going to be even worse for you. Yeah. So I'm just going to clarify that here. The would-be complainer or the would-be listeners. Bystanders. I'm going to say bystanders. It's more broad than listeners. And then
I'm saying I think there's a third possibility that if you know that someone is a near gun,
Mhm.
then you should, like, it could be that it's addressed to the person who is possibly doing something that might get the person angry, and like complaining about them, and that maybe like normally when like in that type of circumstance, it's just like not that much of an issue, but here it's going to be like shattering blows and descending to the chambers of the belly. Like it could be saying to not do something that will cause the complainer, cause the nirgun to complain about you.
Okay, so I guess I still think that that's a subdivision of bystanders standards. So I'll just say, and if for the bystanders, is it the I'm just trying to think how to put it. Is it addressing them as potential inciters of the complainer's complaining, or is it talking about completely
Hearing his words.
innocent? I'll have to put this in quotation marks. Innocent bystanders, meaning that you're just standing around and then you're hearing someone complaining. Oh, and then another question, if we can answer it, okay, is why does this pasuk appear twice verbatim in Mishlei? Oh, by the way, just to elaborate on that question, I guess it's not really elaborating on the question, but it's a I guess it's more of starting to answer it. But I think it's part of getting the facts, though, is where should you look if the pasuk is exactly the same? Like, what should be your first step in answering this question?
Look at where it appears in the
Where
other.
it appears, right? So in general, like we said, each pasuk in Mishlei could be viewed on its own. But here, certainly, you can't view this on its own because on its own, it's the exact same pasuk. So here, we already know what came before this, which is the Kseel's destructive speech. Okay, and this pasuk is part of that. The next pasuk, by the way, is on the surface not related. Gam misrapi b'malachto achu lebal mashchis. Misrapi b'malachto, even no matter how we translate that, it doesn't really seem relevant. And then let's compare that to the other instance of the pasuk. Let's look at the nice setup here. Okay. Oh, here we go. Oh, look, hey, it's our friend. Kamis lahleha yore zikim chitim v'maves kain ish rimas re'ehu v'amar halo masachekani. Okay. The FS. Oh, you know what? I think this is a part of the whole chain here. Yeah. Okay. So I think this, if I remember correctly, this starts from this. Machzik ba'ozne kelev over misaber al riv lo lo. Someone who grabs the ears of a dog is like someone who gets angry over a quarrel which is not his. Okay. I've never been a dog owner, but I assume if you just run up to a dog and grab its ears, then it's not going to be so happy. And then we got the psukim that the Rambam quoted. Then the Efes Eitzim Tichbe Eish, without with no wood, then a fire will be extinguished. Ubein Nirgan Yishtok Madon, and without a complainer, then strife will be silenced. Pecham legechalim ve'etzim le'esh ve'ish midyanim lacharcher riv. Pecham legechalim, like a coal. Pecham is. I always forget what a pecham is. I thought that was coal, like coals to fire and like wood to, like coals to embers and like wood to fire. So is a contentious man to incite quarreling. Then divri nirgan kumislam yehim chadre vaten. Kesef sigim mitsupe al charesh sefasaim dolkim v'lev ra. The dross of silver, I think, is what sigim are. Mitsupe al chares, that are encasing clay, I think. Sefasaim dolkim v'lev ra. So to our lips that kindle and a heart that is evil. Bisfaso yinaker sone uvekirbo yashis mirma. So I mean, you can see all these things are about like speech that is that has bad effects, or that like stokes quarreling. You know, so I don't know if that's going to help us, but I think that when we do address this question, then that's going to be a possible place to look. Okay, are there any other questions that we missed? I'm actually just going to say what Isaac said here. Specifically, what is the mashal of descending, and what is the mashal of chambers of the belly?
Maybe like, what is the opposite of this?
Yeah. What is the opposite? Alrighty. I think rather than starting to analyze this now, I think this would be a good place to stop, and then we'll plan on analyzing it tomorrow. Okay. Alrighty. See you later.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.